talk a little bit about your new book, A Collection of Dreamscapes, which I don't have physically here, but there you go. You know that I've read it.
Postcards as well.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's a
Hay
little
fever.
business card. Okay, yeah.
I want cards with that. So, I have read it.
I'll send some to you. Oh.
Yay. What I really loved about it was how it was like a story cycle in poetic form from beginning to end in each section. Each poem seemed to lead to the next one in some way that was just felt like you were in a continuous flow. Can you talk about how this structure happened? Because I don't know that kind of connection to me feels like it's not obvious or easy necessarily.
I just, well, I feel strongly that a book needs to tell a story. At least my book needs to tell a story. And even though it's like, the individual poems and each one has their own little tale, needs to be a beginning and the end. And I think with everything in life, it's a life cycle. So with my books, I actually resisted doing it, but in the end, I can't help it. I just have to start and end it, which is why you see the final poem, kind of spoiler alert. It comes full circle, everything with life, with love, and with our very existence. So with a collection of nightmares, I actually took 3 years to put it together. But with Dreamscapes, I gave myself a tighter deadline, and there was a lot of scrambling, I think, to get it together. And at the end of it, with Myths and Dreamscapes, I wanted it to finish the story, with a love song of Allegra. Tells the story of the beginning. Yes. And then it's all the exciting and crazy stuff human beings do, right? In between, there's the violence, and there's the love, and there's hate and anger, and there's also birth and joy, and so at the end with Myths and Dreamscapes, it sort of ties everything together, and it's like the story of our existence. It's a story of humanity, it's a story of life, and I just need, I just feel like it needs to tell that story, the full story.
I mean, you and I have talked in emails about our sort of philosophy and approach to life, and what you just said is just like a beautiful summary of what I find in all of your work, and that is there is concept there all the time. So, and I'm just going to go again, one more. This is another one I keep all the time around me. Endless, the brief lives of stardust. I mean, literally, once again, chills. I mean, I can't even with you. I actually can, but So I just love so much the work you do in your work, your writing with fairy tales and myth. I mean, the opening poem in your new book is extraordinary, as is all the work in between. And then again, chills when I just think about how it comes back in the end. Can you talk about how you got so, your voice of writing got so into fairy tales and myths?
I get a bit nervous and sometimes I forget what I'm gonna say.
Don't worry, just say whatever comes to you. Fairy tales and myths.
First time I'm doing this. Yeah. Okay. Fairy tales and myths. Wow. Trying to remember what I wrote to you the other day.
Oh, don't worry about what you wrote.
Myths.
Talk about it, honey.
I know. Okay. Yeah, with myths, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about. Myths go back so far in our human history, I think, that it transcends culture, religion. It's a story of how we came to be. And if you look at every culture, we have some version of it, the origin story, the battle for humanity, our wars, and that's what I love about the myths, and I'd love more time to study them, but with a lot of my poems, I kind of sort of make them up a bit, and some are based on, you know, things that we know about. Like, you know, I'm very fascinated by Greek mythology, I think, because I grew up reading it, you know, so it fascinates me. And studying it later, I never really studied it formally, but I used to love reading world myths and Sumerian myths in particular. Oh wow, they just whoa blow your mind, you know. I was so into what's that book called by Eric, Chariot of the Gods.
Oh
Wow,
yes.
that was just
Oh yes.
amazing. And the myths that he brought into his argument were just mind blowing. And then after that, I just went to read a bit more about it and say, hey, you know, all these stories sound so similar. It's a story of humankind, of us.
Yeah. And
And
one of the things that you did mention to me was Anne Sexton's transformations, because to me, a lot of what your work does with the influence is you transform and create your own myths. And I love that.
yes. Yeah, I was reading a lot of yeah, I became a mom, I think about 13 plus years. Time just kind of, you know, when you
I
have kids.
know. I know.
um, yeah, so over a decade ago, I became a mom, and I began looking at all these fairy tales that I wanted to read to my kids. And, you know, going to the history of them, they were pretty dark. And when I read about how a lot of them came about, they're partly based on myth. And also, they were over time, they were sort of watered down to cater to children and to, you know, suppress quite a few things. And I think um, the current iterations that I've been reading, I didn't quite like. I didn't want my daughter reading and say, oh, you know, I'll be that little girl who, you know, just runs from the wolf and everything. I'm like, no, I'm going to put a crossbow in your hand and you're going to go battle. You don't need a huntsman, you know.
Yes.
But, you know, grandma had to, you know, go out really like as well. So she, you know, she turns and, you know, and the next story, the next poem actually, Grandmother read, it tells a bit about how she survives being eaten and cut open, and then she gets really mad and she joins the cause, as you know, tough women do. Uh, so it was really fun writing that. And there are a few I wrote about Rapunzel,
Yes.
um, and about Cinderella that gets quite violent.
I mean, I
Um,
just love the fact that in your poems and your work, women are not victims. They don't stumble and fall. And that really sings very strongly to me also. I think the strength in there. And so that is just to me so amazing. I'm not trying to rush you, but I know we only got a half an hour. And you know, seriously,
oh,
you and I talk all day. We
oh
could
yeah,
literally
oh yeah.
talk all day. So
I
I'm
have
gonna
about
push.
1 hour, 3 minutes
Yeah,
left,
but not
actually.
just for our interview.
Oh,
They got other stuff they want to do with you, girl.
sorry. And I took 15 minutes coming in because I was like, oh, which button do I press?
Well, technology, you know, it's not always our friend. I'm just so happy that with this coronavirus that we can do anything like this. So, you know.
That's true. That's true. All right,
Okay,
we'll.
so I wanted to ask you about your writing process. I think that a lot of people are very interested in how creative people work. Do they have setups? Is there certain music? Is there a thing they do in their space for writing? I think as a parent, it's not as easy. I mean, my son's 37, so I can do what I want now because he's not here. But can you talk a little bit about, you know, how your process works for you as far as creating and doing your, you know, the work?
Yeah. I think I've, you know, through my time of writing, so called, you know, in a professional level, before I had the children, before I, yeah, before the kids really, um, I used to tell myself I sit down, lie down on my stomach, whatever, in any comfortable position, and I would stay there till I wrote 5 poems that were good enough to send out. That'd be the poems I wrote because I was angry with someone or I was frustrated with something. And those were what I called vent poems. And, no person should really see those. And
I know that. Yeah.
there
Ooh,
are
girl,
some
I got boxes of that stuff.
yeah. But the stuff that came out, and I had those 5 poems, and I'm like, okay, I can unfreeze now, unfreeze all motor functions, and that was my process before I had children. When I had the kids, I couldn't write for 8 years because I was too exhausted. I had well, I was basically so sleep deprived that I had to stay up still just to have some me time.
I remember that time.
Oh yeah, stays with you. And I used to make toys for them because I just creative people, we just gotta make things. So I've got this little creature, little gingerbread men I sold for them with felt. Now my eyes are gone, I can't do that anymore. So just as well. And one day, I have to thank Mike Allen, my friend, who's been, through those 8 years. He's like, hey, are you writing? Are you writing? And he would push me. And I think I was also in touch with you and Marge sporadically. Marge said, hey, we want to do a poetry thing with you for HWA. So, dear God, I've not written anything in years. Say, go write something.
She's a wonderful supporter of poets and work. She really is, Marge Simon.
And so it was, all these friends who remembered me and kept in touch. I basically vanished, right? Vanished. And then Jason Eric Lundberg, who's actually based now in Singapore. I knew him from 20 years ago when we used to write, submit, and appear in the same magazines. And we hadn't talked then, but he said one day he just reached out. I think we had Facebook by then. How old is Facebook anyways? Never mind.
I don't know.
It's pretty old. So he reached out one day and he said, hey, Christina, remember you from far too long. And I'm running this magazine now called Lonta, and I'd love for you to submit something. I'm like, and so I said, okay, I gotta write. I gotta do this for myself. Finally, it's been 8 years, and although I've written like one poem every like 2 years or something, because of my lovely friends who had prodded me to write something. Thank you, Mike. and so I said, okay, I was gonna sit down and I would be go back to disciplining myself to write. My kids were still really small then, so I wrote, instead of surfing the net and just de-stressing, I said I'm gonna do some of this for myself, and I was gonna write, and that's how it happened. And I realized the clock is ticking, so we got to move on. Okay.
No. John actually said we can take a little as much time as we want, but I don't think. I wanted to give some space for any other things.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a little extra time. Okay.
Okay. But so, now as they grow older, the children, okay, the coronavirus is gonna, brought me back there because now they're 24/7. They don't meet their friends and they're a bit frustrated. So they're like, Mom, they need help with technical support for, classes, and there's cooking every day and washing and stuff. So I was wondering, why don't I have more time to write now? We're home all the time. But it's all these things. And, for me, it's important to create a positive environment for them. So I'm like, wax on, wax off. Okay, let's okay, how can I help you? How can I help you?
Let go of the things you can't change.
Yeah. Okay. So, I try to do that. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, on the bed, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pass out for a few hours. And, but I still try. I do now I can go back to my pre-kids blocking off. I'm like, okay, you kids do your homework, and mom's gonna just take the hour and write 5 poems. Usually it's about 3. Um, and they understand now when I say I've got to do edits, I've got to go through my stuff, I've got to do my work, and so that's all good. But my process before this was to the phone's been pretty amazing. I don't know where it's gone now. I think it's gone to take a break. Oh, here it is.
You talking
Sorry,
to the phone? You
no break
talking to
for
the phone, or
you.
you
No
type?
break for you, honey. It follows me everywhere, and sometimes I just get so inspired. I just pop out one of the writing apps, and I just type. Haiku's been my best friend for years because it's
Nice.
so short, and
Yes.
I can capture a moment. I feel fulfilled that I've written something.
Well,
And
your haiku, your short poetry is amazing. I mean, there's not. The thing is that it's not just because it's short. It doesn't mean it's an easy form. I mean, when I went to learn haiku, I must have written 50 to 100 before I felt like I started getting the rhythm of it. And yours is so perfectly balanced on every word. I mean, there's
thank
not
you so
anything
much.
to take away, to add. It's just exactly perfect. How did you get into that form? I mean, was it a matter of time that got into it, or something else drew you to that short form?
Um, I think it was, well, I wanted to write more for
Hmm.
certain, and I still wrote quite a bit of short, medium, and occasionally the very long poem. I go through these cycles where I'm like, oh my gosh, every poem is like a 3 to 4 page poem now. So I had my long poem phase, I
Hmm.
had my short poem phase, I had my medium length kind of poem phase, and then it sort of followed the cycles in my life. When the kids had more classes at a certain time, I would follow them, and I'd have that block of time, you know
Hmm.
um standing outside McDonald's or something, um writing something, um trying to find the inspiration to write something. And the haiku phase came about 2015, about 5 years ago, I think. Check my bio again. Anyway, yeah, all the facts
I'm
are
never going to
there.
be a
I
problem with
don't
that because
trust
I
my
can't remember
memory.
yesterday.
um, so it was something I could write. I found it very peaceful to write, regular haiku. But the journey there was basically actually through sci-fi haiku, and from
Oh, yes.
I was going to write the stories anyway, so I'd write them shorter. And yes, and Sci-Fi Quest. Terry is wonderful. She actually guided me through the first few
Mm.
times, and she was so kind and patient. I said, "Oh, here's how you can write it. We don't really use caps, but if you want to, it's fine. But here's the traditional way we usually write it, and we sign it." I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I've been sending you stuff for 1 year, and only now you've told me. I feel so bad. But she was so kind and lovely about it. And I'm still one of her faithful contributors. um she's so lovely. And I love sci-fi cool. It's so inspiring. Just open it,
It
and
really is. It's a wonderful form, and you do a beautiful job with it. The other thing
yeah.
that I really love, the first time I read, I think it was Little Red for Space and Time that we published. It was the linked haiku. I literally swooned, like I'm getting chills again thinking about it. I was like, holy crap, why haven't I thought of doing this? Because I'm going to. If I see something good, I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Even if you do it better than me, I'm still going to do it. So
I want to see it.
I'm going to try. We'll see. So, are
Yeah.
there any forms that you have been attracted to? I think when you and I were emailing, I sent you this one form that I discovered, and I am over the moon.
Fibonacci.
The Fibonacci, which is
Oh
crazy,
wow.
but
Okay.
awesome. Are there
It's
any
so cool.
forms that you've thought about, like you really want to just explore some more?
Yeah. I suddenly realize now that my poetry journey has really about how much time I have and how much mind space.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have the time, but you've got like taxes and stuff to do, and which is
Woo, I know. I know.
and and so and so it sort of follows that. And now I find myself in this time where I'd like to write longer stories, poems, but I also love the short form. So sometimes, you know, this time now
Yeah.
with what's going on now,
Yeah.
you know, I find myself distracted, and you know, sometimes I find myself in a slump, but I want to tell the story. So
Mhm.
what I found was good. What we mentioned, you know, a joint poem. So like charitas, which are like
Mm.
6-line poems broken into 1 to 3 lines. And I play
Oh,
around with that a bit, and
I
sometimes
haven't played with
it's
that. I think I need to do that.
it's quite fun actually. And so those are pretty short. I can write them very informally. I don't have to pay attention to caps, you know, the first letter being capitalized, which is, you know, my kind of thing with my poems, that for me I feel it's important. But when I write haiku and tanka, charita, all the short forms, I don't feel very bound by that. And I think for me, it's a form of therapy, because it helps me let go. With a lot of
Yeah.
my poetry, I feel very, I constrain myself. I put, you know, I put myself that this is how it has to be. It has to look this way. Um, it has to basically have this form.
Yeah.
Um, and with joint poems and, you know, all the short forms, you just let go, you know, you just tell the story, and it's
I think
short.
it's also a matter of having, to me, poetry is like music and dance. And I think if you get the rhythm, you don't have to think about it. And that's what
Yeah,
I find so wonderful about your work, is that the form is never intrusive. It's always the voice, the sound, the
yeah.
story, the words that you pick. And now, after having heard you read, I'm pretty sure everyone else is going to have a lot of the effect I have. And that is, now when I read your work, I'm going to hear your voice. And you did a beautiful job reading.
Thank
Talking
you.
about forms again, having your short story published in Space and the latest Space and Time, which is fabulous. Also,
Yeah.
I know you published flash fiction. So again, this is not just because flash fiction, meaning a short story, doesn't mean it's easy to do. It's a certain
Yeah.
rhythm to do it well. But I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about extending into longer forms. Like,
Mhm.
are you going to be doing more stories? Have you thought about the crazy form of novel, which I'm just doing now after 50 years of being afraid? So it's kind of, can
uh,
you talk a little bit about, what you see with yourself doing the longer forms like fiction, novel, longer stories?
yes. Yeah, it's kind of strange going from regular poetry then to haiku, and let's do novels.
Girl, I know. I
Oh
didn't do it
man.
for 20, 30 years. So
um yeah, you know, I have to thank Marge again. She's been so wonderful. We chat quite a
very
bit
good.
on emails, and she was telling, hey, you gotta sign up for this thing called Ladies of Horror Flash. And basically they send you a prompt. It's run by Nina and Erin.
Mhm.
They're on Facebook, so if you guys want to join in, it's real fun. They'll send you a picture every month, and you just, you know, write something inspired by that. And oh wow, you know, the gift of death was actually inspired by a
Whew.
picture.
Wow.
So you know how it spins off. And with fiction, I'll be very honest, I think I need more fiction craft. It's something that I
Mhm.
need to work on, because when I write my stories, and for me to edit, because I always feel
I
that
know.
something's missing. And I'll send it to a couple of friends to look at it, and they give me really good advice. Thank you. And 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 sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. And
Mhm.
I can safely say that Red, which was in Space and Time as well, it was a story about Little Red Riding Hood, but in the modern day. And there was also this whole backstory. Um, and that took 5 years to finish writing and editing,
Mm.
before, you know, it found a home. So, you know, if I was gonna write a novel, I'd have to be 200 years old.
That's all
Oh
right.
no,
It takes the time it takes.
I
Literally, I
hope
just
not.
finished my first one and it took 3 years. So
um, but I'm hoping that as my kids grow older and I have more time to write. I mean, I'm not rushing it. I'm kind of enjoying. I love spending time with them. They're just great kids, and they're so fun. And
yeah,
the, yeah, they're the best. And yeah, I'm cherishing this time here. And I think as we live, we carry more stories with us. I would say that
absolutely.
a story I would tell 20 years ago would be very different from telling it now. And
Yes.
I have a story actually that I want to tell. It's been charted out. I've probably written about 100,000
Woo!
words, 3
Woo!
versions,
Are you kidding
all
me?
thrown out,
Holy
all
crap.
thrown. I'm like,
Woo!
I got to 50,000 words and I'm like, oh gosh, what are they gonna do now? They're stuck, they're just sitting around. Okay, one person sitting on top of a car, zombie horde is coming. And I'm like, what are they doing? And I realized with a novel or even a very long story, I need to chart it out because I like to write on the fly, because it's an adventure for me when I write. It's so fun, right? And when I sit down and write, I don't want to stop. So the few blocks of time, I actually gave myself 1 year to write that novel, and of course it's
Mm,
100,000 words. Now they're doing now, but it was good practice, so I don't regret
yeah,
that. There was zero poetry produced that year.
I
But it was a
know.
good experience. And I think what I'd like to do is I've charted the whole story out. It's going to be a trilogy,
Wonderful.
um,
Yay.
and whole life cycle story. Just a spoiler and a secret that I'll only tell you guys. The story's already started in here.
Oh, but you're not going to tell us where in there, right?
And yes, and I shouldn't say much more than that. But yes, it's going to be an overarching story over generations, and the characters are very much alive in my head, and they do weird stuff in there. But I want to be able to flesh them out to be interesting characters, and to tell a good story, and that someone would pick up the novel and say, hey, this is a good story. I really enjoyed being here.